The purpose of this video was to make a high quality reusable surgical style mask using a high efficiency HEPA style filter with commonly and readily available materials. These are the items we purchased at our local fabric store. The most difficult item to find right now was the 20 gauge flat copper wire used for the bridge. These are the items that we had around the house that we found useful, and included the binder clips seen in the left upper hand corner, multiple marking pens. I found the crayon type pencil located in the right upper corner, very handy to mark the fabric for cutting. Lastly, we made these templates out of thin, sturdy cardboard wrapped in aluminum foil, which helped a lot with making the mask, and it'll be demonstrated later in the video. This is a 1/2 inch strip template used for folding over the material to make the pockets on the inside for the filter. This is showing how I marked out the material to minimize the amount of waste. This is a 45-inch sturdy cotton polyblend material folded over, so the length you see here is 22.5 inches. I found that by marking out the one-piece portions of the mask side by side on the upper portion of the material, this left me the lower portion to create the triangles used for the side shields. In the end, I ended up with just 1/2 inch to 1 inch of waste at the very bottom. Here, I again used the template to mark out the triangles to be used for the side shields. I used a marking pen to outline the corners of the triangle at each point, and then connected these with a ruler. I found that using the binder clips to be very helpful to hold the multiple layers of fabric together while cutting the material. Here I'm just showing how using this aluminum wrap template made it much easier for me to create the inner and outer aspects of a mask with a single piece. I would just align it and then go ahead and iron it, and once the seams were pressed down with the iron, it made it much easier to sew. The lower inner half, the one you're seeing now, is 5.5 inches from the bottom, and the upper one is 3.5 inches from the top. So here, after everything has been ironed, I'm about to sew the what I call the leaflets on the inner portion of the mask with some overlap. Were folded over 1/2 inch twice. And then also I aligned the edge of the fabric with the foot plate of the sewing machine, and that seemed to work pretty well for me. Again, I'm slow at this. This machine is more of a hobby machine. I found that if I went too fast, it would bind up or fray the material. Here I'm just showing the test insertion of a 20 gauge copper flat wire or ribbon that will serve as the nose piece And this worked really well to mold it onto the person's nose and face, so there's no gap for air entry. This essentially shows pretty close to how the mask is going to work, with some overlap of the upper portion onto the lower portion. And this is really important so that there's full coverage of the filter material. Here again, I'm just showing how using this template made it really easy to create the creases that are necessary for the mask. The creases allow the mask to extend anterior to the mouth and the face, giving the person more room to breathe. If any of you have ever used a N95 mask before, you quickly realize that it is actually quite difficult to breathe through this material, but that's what it's intended for, is to filter out microscopic particles like bacteria and viruses. The creases were essentially 3/4 inch overlap on the upper and lower portions, and I found that on average I was able to make 2 creases on the lower half and on average 1 on the upper half. Taking time to really press this down was really helpful to keep its shape, so that I was able to more easily sew in the double folded bias tape on the sides. This again just shows the use of the 1/2 inch template to create the creases needed to make the mask.